that's a lot of
I don't find that attractive at all. I mean, maybe you do and young men
interesting.
do.
It may not be attractive. It's interesting.
In order to win elections, we need suburban women, we need independents, we need conservative Democrats, we need the rhinos you were talking about who do have the R after their name. And I think most of that crap from Trump, I mean, it was 100% worth it. There's a reason I wrote In Trump We Trust for the promises he was making.
In this one, we're going to have a look at Ann Coulter having a debate with Dinesh D'Souza on Tim Pool's Culture War show. Now, Ann Coulter is a conservative commentator, and she initially supported Donald Trump in his lead-up and aftermath of the 2016 election, even publishing a book titled In Trump We Trust. However, Ann Coulter later soured on him due to what she perceived as failures on immigration matters and his failure to build a wall along the southern border with Mexico. Then, Ann Coulter declined to endorse any candidate in the 2020 race and later didn't believe Donald Trump would be the nominee in 2024. Thankfully, in my opinion, she was wrong. But let's check it out.
And so people are like fascinated because they're like, I'm not in politics. I don't know what these summits are like. But when I listen to Trump, I'm listening to a real guy tell me that this guy's fat and he's thin and he farted during our conversation and he was overeating, whereas every other politician is giving me a kind of a prepared memo. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a lot of
I don't find that attractive at all. I mean, maybe you do and young men
interesting.
do.
It may not be attractive. It's interesting.
In order to win elections, we need suburban women, we need independents, we need conservative Democrats, we need the rhinos you were talking about who do have the R after their name. And I think most of that crap from Trump, I mean, it was 100% worth it. There's a reason I wrote In Trump We Trust for the promises he was making. And also when you talk about, you know, the bold statements and the things he comes out and says, yeah, what I remember was build the wall and I'm going to deport illegals so fast your head will spin. And dreamers, I want Americans to have dreams. And gun-free zones don't work. And then he gets elected and says, I'm in favor of taking their guns first. Oh, you guys are afraid of the NRA. Not me. Bump stock ban, nothing on illegals, nothing on the wall. So I remember those. You can't really make those statements, and manifestly so did a lot of his base voters, because the only demographic that went down compared to 2016 in 2020 was white men, and it went down a lot, and it went down in all those states across the upper Midwest that he needed to win. Oh yeah, he didn't need the NRA. Turns out maybe he should have been afraid of the NRA.
So what gets those people back in the states that Trump needs to win, or what gets independent voters this year? Is there one issue that you think? I mean, I assume you're going to say immigration.
Of course, immigration. Of course, immigration, crime, transgenders. I mean, the wokeness stuff, and the one thing, if I could advise DeSantis, the one way I think he should modify the wokeness thing is it's not just about kindergartners. And I think people are too focused on the schools on that. What is wokeness? It's anti-white racism plus cartoons of anal sex. That's basically the full panoply of what it's the DIE bureaucracies. It's the race before merit thing. It's no longer deciding things on the basis of merit. It is the anti-white male hatred that animates the left.
But you said earlier in this very discussion that white people are the only group that have been taught to hate themselves.
I think they do it on their own.
All right, they do it on their own, and well, maybe they're taught to do it. But how do you think then running a campaign appealing to white people and saying, in effect, that there's this anti-white ideology in the country, how is that going to be a winning technique?
Well, manifestly, I don't think. I mean, if all white people were liberals, oh, what a horrible, horrible thought. Then we wouldn't get a single vote. I'm saying
working class white guys. Working class white guys.
They don't hate white people. No, the vast majority of white people don't hate themselves. There are enough in European countries, there are enough in this country to have suicidal immigration policies, to have suicidal hiring policies. If it were 100%, then literally you might as well go and commit suicide. Republicans would never win a single election. Nothing would happen anyplace. But no, that obviously Trump got elected one time by appealing to mostly working class whites who hadn't voted for a long, long time. But mostly, I just think it's true, the anti-white racism. I think it's true and it's hurting everyone. I'm worried about, the pilots they're hiring. I'm worried about the air traffic controllers they're hiring. It's destroying all of our lives, and they're treating black people like they're children and patting them on the head when they're the shoplifting and the carjacking. But I would make the wokeness, anti-white racism, crime, and immigration.
What are you?
If all white people were liberals, that's an interesting concept, because I can't help but wonder what the rest of the landscape of the country would look like. It might look like America, a couple hundred years ago. But that's just me guessing, right? But she's right to be concerned about the DEI hired pilots and air traffic controllers. Not because they aren't white, but because they aren't the best, most qualified individuals to do the job. And that is the basic standard of DEI hiring when they put it to practice. They look at the person's race, they look at the person's gender, they look at the person's sexuality first, and then they look at the qualifications. So they say, okay, let's find the most qualified person that looks like this. Let's find the most qualified gay person. Things like that, rather than just looking at the qualifications and hiring from the top. And, that's dangerous, because when it comes to those type of positions, air traffic controller, pilot, even teachers, in my opinion, not putting your best foot forward is not giving the best. And, when it comes to a world scale, our enemies love it that we're doing that. I mean, China's out there teaching multiple languages to their students. Meanwhile, we're teaching our students about pronouns, So, I mean, what does the future look like? When that comes to fruition in 50 years, what does that future look like for America versus China? I'll let you guys answer that in the comments.
So, what do you think are getting independents in particular to the polls?
I think that we just run a scorched earth campaign against Biden and what the Biden regime is doing. And
so what are the Biden regime's three biggest sins?
Well, its biggest sin now is a wholesale assault on the basic liberty of Americans. I mean, when I came to America in the 70s, I was a teenager, and there was a big political debate going on. But one of the things that really consoled me or relieved me about America, I'm like, look, there are certain basic rights. They're right there in the Bill of Rights. It's not a full compendium of our rights, but right to free speech, right to conscience, right to assemble. You can petition the government without fear for grievances, equal justice under the law. And I'm like, this is not up for political negotiation. It doesn't matter if 90% of people don't agree with me. They can't shut me up, right? So now we fast forward to now, and I say that within 2 or 3 years, all these basic rights, every single one of them, is in serious jeopardy. I'm not even sure with a straight face I could say that we are, in a pure sense, a free country anymore. Think of what the defining characteristics of tyrannical regimes are. Let's take North Korea, China, or the old Soviet Union. Mass surveillance of citizens, systematic censorship, wholesale indoctrination in the schools and the media, a one-party state. Police states are one-party states. They shut down the opposition. Doesn't mean they don't have elections. Iran has elections. China has elections, but it's a controlled opposition that's subordinate to the regime. Political prisoners, criminalization of dissent. And I say, wow, we have all that right now in this country. So that's the point of making a movie called Police State, is saying we're not there yet. Obviously, if we were a full-fledged police state, I couldn't make this movie. I mean, I'd be locked up right now. But we are headed in with great speed and unexpected rapidity toward a country in which none of our rights anymore are safe.
Do you feel like this is something that the average American is aware of, or do you think that, inflation?
They know about January 6th.
Right. I was going to say, what issues distract people? It's not that I don't disagree with your point, but, when you are talking about voters, if you say your rights are being stripped away, is that more impactful to them than saying you can't pay for groceries this month because inflation is so high?
Well, it's not one or the other, right? I mean, just like you can run on the economy and you can run on the transgender issue. One doesn't contradict the other, but I think you have to. I mean, the reason to make a film is to do a wake up call for people who are not woken up, right? If they were already woken up, the film is in a sense pointless. I kind of feel like the animal who's, sees the predator in the trees. I'm trying to warn the herd. But the ordinary guy is saying no. The ordinary guy goes, I'm not Trump. And, I didn't go in the Capitol on January 6th and I pay my taxes. So, I'm never going to have the FBI come smashing through my door. And my point is, you could not be more wrong.
Sure.
Because this thing has devolved very quickly in a short time.
Although it's awful what was done to the January 6th protesters, and people should know about it, certainly people who watch this podcast and be annoyed by it. By and large, I would avoid bringing up January 6th. I wrote a book on mobs, demonic. They're always, always dangerous. It's the French Revolution versus the American Revolution. And when I wrote that book, and up until January 6th, I could say without fear of contradiction, there has never been a right-wing mob. And January 6th, I understand why people thought it was Antifa at first. I understand why the Capitol policeman said, no, we don't need, or I don't know, Nancy Pelosi, the rest of them, they weren't bringing in. There hadn't been a right-wing mob before. And now there's finally been one. And we're all going to be in the nursing home someday, and they're still going to be talking about January 6th. Mm-hmm. It does not reflect well on us. They were idiots. They shouldn't have gone to prison for 2 life terms and so on and so forth. What was done to Enrique Tarrio, absolutely outrageous. But generally, I'd avoid talking about it.
Why be so deferential to the left?
Because I don't think it helps us for people to remember what happened on January 6th. I think that scares independents. I think it scares suburban moms. I think it pisses off a lot of Republicans. I mean, it kind of pisses me off. Both sides, that they did it. And then the wild, crazy overreaction. I mean, my last book was Resistance is Futile, and the point of it was, we're never, ever going to get away from it. Trump does something dumb, and then the left has such a crazy overreaction. I end up coming to his defense. No, he said something dumb, but he didn't kill 3 nuns. No MSNBC. He didn't nail a kitten to church doors. And they keep overreacting and forcing me to defend whether it's Trump or the January 6th people. Your reaction is so out of proportion to everything that just happened. You're making me switch sides here.
So the issue for me is that politics means very little if the attitude everyone's going to have is, when the left cries, we answer. Why? If they come out and they're like, Trump said a naughty word, I'll say, you're a moron, have a nice day.
Yes.
The stories you're putting forward are meaningless to me.
Yes.
It's every single time there's a story that if something happens, and let's say there's a story that Andy No tweeted about. A swastika appeared on some cars in a black neighborhood. The left went nuts, started screaming about it. Turns out it was a black man who did it. And then it's gone.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
if the anti-establishment forces, conservatives, the right, libertarians, do not put all of their energy into cultural domination, it's pointless, because the conversation we end up having is Donald Trump said a thing that was innocuous and it became front page news, and we all must answer for it. No. Now it's start setting the news cycle. We need to set the we've been doing it quite a bit. I should say, I mean, we as an anti-establishment.
I really like Tim Pool's response right there, in that we shouldn't be beholden to a Democrat left-wing viewed perspective of culture and politics, and that we in the middle and on the right need to retake the ground that is the cultural norm, because look where it's gotten us. I mean, even Ann Coulter is out here repeating these mainstream media left-wing lie words that basically, paint the picture of January 6th, and that's where I disagree with her opinion a little bit. I mean, I know she's saying that they're always going to refer back to it as like the worst time in history, but she's also calling the few people that went into the Capitol a right-wing mob. I don't believe there was a mob that day. The doors were unlocked from the inside. They're magnetic doors that were unlocked from the inside. And, one of the worst perpetrators, the face of the insurrection, which is another word that she used, which I disagree with. It was not an insurrection in my opinion. But that we saw the shaman guy was basically escorted around by the police, for a year or two, this guy was the face of the whole event. You know, that's what they used to tell the people, to tell the world that this was the insurrection led by this crazy guy that was painted up carrying an American flag and this and that, right? And so when she starts using their keywords, they've crept into the culture too far. So it's time to reverse some of that a little bit, get back to wholesome values, principled, with a more principled approach when it comes to these things. I mean, reporting, they don't even cite sources anymore when it comes to reporting an issue. And you know, the old saying is that a lie goes halfway around the world before the truth puts its shoes on or pants on or whatever. And I can't help but wonder, considering that Ann Coulter cited 3 of her own books in an 8-minute long period there, that she's not on there trying to play a role, right? I recently saw Ann Coulter on the PBD podcast, and she came across to me like she was mad because she wasn't getting the credit that she felt she deserved for being one of the first people to actually support Donald Trump. And because Trump didn't build the wall immediately into its completion, she was lied to and she felt betrayed. And, you know, that's lacking the regard of how the mainstream media, the Democrats, and the Paul Ryan-led Republicans were working against and dragging their feet against Donald Trump, which leads me to wonder, because, you know, Ann Coulter is a smart woman, that maybe she's learned that she can make more money at this point by being anti-Trump. We know CNN made a lot of money and did really well during those 4 years, and I kind of think in the back of their minds they want Trump to win again because he was a cash cow for them. Same with the rest of the woke mainstream media. But I wonder if Ann Coulter realized that she can make more money being anti-Trump, maybe sell more books. And I could be wrong, but there's no way, in my opinion, that a person with her values could believe that Donald Trump losing this election is what's best for the United States or the Republican Party. And so I think I'll just leave it right there. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this video, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.